Worry is just negative visualization because people say, I don't know how to visualize. I'm like, yes, you do. We all have been doing it
Wow, I've never heard
our
that before.
whole life.
Privilege is all around you. It's useless until you recognize it. So it's time to stop feeling guilty and figure out how to use your privilege to make an impact.
I'm Amber Cabral, and this is Guilty Privilege. Welcome back to Guilty Privilege. My name is Amber Cabral, and today I've had the privilege of talking to Ruby Lathon. She is my cousin and also the founder of Ruby Red's Vegan. She's also a holistic nutritionist and wellness coach, and you may have seen her actually in some pretty popular films like What the Health and They're Trying to Kill Us, because we know that we're all trying to eat better and we're also trying to live. So in today's conversation, we talk about some ways that you can do that and some of the inequities that exist in our food system, some of the decisions that we can make to help us live better, and some things that you can do right now that don't have to change your entire life, that can literally change your entire life. So let's get into the conversation. Thanks for joining me, Ruby.
Glad to be here.
This is good.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, I was talking to Jess earlier this morning and was like, I've never had a family member conversation before. So this is unique. It feels
Yeah.
special. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about what you have to share because I think you have a really amazing testimony, but also I think you have some good nuggets to share. And because you and I have a little bit of a different lifestyle in some ways that are that matter to this episode, I think that it'll be a good dynamic for people to see the fullness, which I think is one of the things you try to talk about. So let's start by first just saying, like, who are you? What do you do?
I am a holistic nutrition educator. So I'm a health coach. I'm a vegan chef. I do a lot of things, but that encompasses what I do. I help people heal naturally, focusing on food and energetics.
Yeah. And you have a very different background though. What is your background originally?
Yeah. So I started in engineering, computer science, actually. Started in computer science. And then I did industrial engineering. And I always wanted to be a doctor when I was little. So I was like, when the opportunity came for the PhD, I was like, yeah, it's not quite the doctor I was thinking of, but it's a doctor. So, and then I did my PhD in industrial systems engineering with a minor in statistics and artificial intelligence.
Which is very different than what we would imagine a person who is a nutritionist
would
be doing.
Right.
What prompted the shift? Like, what made you transition?
Yeah, well, my own journey through health.
Yeah.
So I was working in defense. 2007, I was surprisingly diagnosed with thyroid cancer because I had the test done and I was like, I don't have cancer. It's like, I'm just doing it because the doctor said to do it.
Yeah.
So I was shocked when I got that information back. And I asked the doc, the treatment. He's like, you just take your thyroid out and then we put you on this medication and that's it. And I was like, what are the alternatives? And he's like, there are no alternatives. I was like, well, what about natural treatment? He was like, no one's ever been healed naturally from thyroid cancer. And that kind of just struck me like, really?
Wow.
And so it was at that moment that I decided I was not going to do the surgery.
Wow. So like real time, you were just like,
it was such a visceral, immediate response. And what made it such a response was he starts saying, we're going to do this. You're going to come and have the surgery, you're going to do this. And it was like, and I'm a rebel at heart. Nobody tells me what to do.
Right.
I'd even tell my mom when I was little, in my mind, I'd be like, you're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
I would say that, but that's what I was thinking.
Right.
And so I'm like, you just going to hijack my life for the next couple of months you didn't even ask me.
Right.
So that caused that reaction, like, well, first of all, how do you know no one's ever been healed? First, and two, let me do some research and find out.
I feel like for most people, the experience of like, I have been diagnosed with cancer and I am going to cure myself is a bit more of a journey. Like, I don't think people are like, no, I'm not getting my thyroid removed. Like, that feels
it was
very...
a few things. So the other thing is, he said I would have to be on medication forever. Like, dependent.
You do when you have your thyroid.
And I was like, I don't want to be dependent on anything like that. Another part of my independent spirit. I was like, I don't want to be dependent on this. So maybe if he had said, you wouldn't have to be on medication, I might have considered it. But it was the combination of, we're taking over your life and you're going to be on medication forever. And I didn't even ask you if you want to do this or not.
Right. Okay, so where did you start? Like, I mean, in your mind, you're like, okay, I can fix this, which I think is amazing because first of all, I can't imagine getting a cancer diagnosis, but I cannot imagine making a decision about my own treatment plan and just feeling confident about it. Like, I feel like I would have had a ton of anxiety. I don't know if I would have had confidence in my own ability to research. You're like, yeah, I could do some research. Please talk to me about that.
I think it's just a background thing of knowing that there are natural remedies for most things.
Yeah.
Just my grandmother, mother, it's just, we use vinegar and apple cider vinegar for stuff, know, we use natural things to heal. And then it just triggered memories of people talking about how they'd heal their cancer naturally.
Yeah.
Like this woman in my church who was like 70 something said she'd, 20 years ago, she had breast cancer and she didn't do the natural. So I was like, it's been done.
Yeah.
So I was like, so I'm not going to be the first one. I just got to figure out what people did.
Right.
I was more shocked than afraid.
Yeah.
And I happened to be like with my family like the next day after I found out. And so I let them know. And then everybody started crying. And I was like, I'm not dying. Y'all can stop.
Right, like relax. Yes.
I was like, I'm not dying. I'm just gonna get through this. I'm gonna figure it out. So I went to this natural life treatment center that was affiliated with the church that I went to at the time that teaches you how to use food as medicine.
Oh, okay.
So about 3 weeks after that, they had an opening and I went after the diagnosis. And in the meantime, I was just like researching what to do. So that was step one. Let me figure out how to use the natural remedies.
Absolutely.
And then after going there, I learned, it was like a download of information. I learned so much in such a short amount of time that I felt confident coming back that I could do this. And then I had a friend who was studying to be a naturopathic doctor, and I was her first patient.
Oh, nice. Okay. So, that's a great friend to have. Look at timing.
Yeah. So just between that information and her, I felt like I can do this.
That's amazing. I think a lot of people who get a diagnosis that would like be scary. Like I think a cancer diagnosis would really scare me.
It is scary.
I think having the reaction of I feel like having a sense of empowerment that had to be incredible.
Yeah, I just felt like I had to be in charge of this process because it just evoked you're a cog in this wheel. I felt like you're about to enter the cancer machine.
Exactly.
You no longer have control of your life.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not
participating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. That could be, that definitely resonates with me. Well, what did you do? But also how long?
So when I was at that treatment center, people ask, it's Uchee Pines. There are many like that and many others. That's just the one that I went to.
Yeah.
I saw people healing there. Like this woman had a tumor in her mouth and it was shrinking in that 3 weeks that I was there.
Wow.
So I was like, mine is a centimeter and hers was like inches. And I was like, so this should be gone in 3 months. I was like, we're going to get this.
I set a date for my cancer to be gone. The power of the mind, y'all.
I know.
Like we're going to talk about that too. But like the power of the mind, you were like, oh, that's what's going on? Oh, we'll be done with this.
Right.
Wow.
Because I was like, I jumped all in, I'm doing everything they're telling me to do. And so I was going to have another ultrasound in 3 months because the doc said, well, you have a couple of months to do what you want and then we can schedule the surgery in 3 months. So I went back and it was still there and I was devastated. And it was the same size, no change. And he took the opportunity to discourage me, of course. I almost left in tears because I was so like emotional about it. And then that's when the other pieces of the puzzle started coming together.
Okay, let's talk about the other pieces of the puzzle. Like I always say, when I talk to you about people, I'm always like, I have a cousin, she's a famous vegan. Because, I'm going to eat the things. But like, I admire that you have been like so deliberate about healthy eating, but you have been really clear, like there are other elements to this. It's not just what you eat. There's other stuff. What are the other puzzle pieces that came in?
I saw food as the foundation. Let's make sure we're not putting junk in. Let's clean it up. Let's give my body the most potent nutrients it can possibly get.
Yeah.
That was the food. And then different supplementation from juices to wheatgrass and a whole bunch of things.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And if you happen to also be looking for tools to help you navigate tough conversations, to be able to show up as a more impactful ally, or just to have resources about how to navigate equity in your world, I've written 2 books. My first book is called Allies and Advocates. And this book is really focused on helping you show up as a more impactful ally. It has actual tactics and tips and things that you can practice to help you get there, both for yourself and for others. My second book is called Say More About That. Now, Say More About That is more about helping you to speak up, to push back, to challenge, to be able to have those conversations that sometimes get a little bit difficult. And in fact, I've given you actual scripts to help you to be able to do that. So if you're interested in just having a few extra resources in your pocket to be able to help you to navigate any of those things, you can go pick up those books anywhere where you buy books, or you can pop down into the show notes and click the links and buy them there. Back to the episode.
The other piece that I realized, I was drowning in some fear, even though I appeared to be like, I'm in charge. There's still fear.
Yeah, you were resilient, but you were like, I'm a little nervous about
Right.
this. Yeah,
I mean, what if this doesn't work?
Yeah,
you know,
and it's
what am I going to
scary.
do next? And, you know, I've let my entire network know I'm doing this because I was like searching for information, not to be like, oh, look what I'm doing. It's like, if you have any information,
help me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when it wasn't done in that 3 months, then I was talking with my friend Phyllis, who was studying to be the naturopath, and she's a very successful one now. She's like, let's uncover a little bit more the emotional piece. What does the thyroid represent? You know, and when you get more into Eastern medicine and philosophy, where you get sick and how you get sick gives you an indicator of what you need to work on.
Okay.
And so at the time, my thyroid was also enlarged. Which is one of the reasons we were looking at it to begin with. And they're saying, you know, if it gets too large, it wraps around your vocal cord.
Oh, wow.
And so it's already there. But if it gets too large, you can start impeding your speech.
Oh, wow.
And you can either become hoarse or not
be able to speak
at all. And so she's like, what is that? What do you think? And I was like,
that sounds like someone's been suppressing. Is that a suppression thing? Because that's what I would think.
Yes, it is very much so.
You know, I do not suppress a word. So
yes, I know. I know. But I was the consummate people pleaser.
Yeah.
Do everything right. I was the teacher's pet. I was like, I'm not, even though I was like the rebel, I still didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. We talked a little bit about that last night too. Like just like about that, like how the Southern energy sometimes that kind of creeps in. Yeah.
I was working as an engineer. So I had left the laboratory that I was working in. I was working in a partnership. We started our own engineering firm, and I was leading up the Albuquerque division of that.
Okay.
However, it wasn't a fair or equitable partnership.
Okay.
I was doing most of the work and getting the least amount of
money.
pay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And it was all male.
Right. Oh, well, yeah.
You know how that goes. So I was like actively trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this partnership, because I've got money in it. How am I going to get my money out of it? What am I going to do next? What do I want to do? I even want to stay in this field. I don't like working in defense. I don't like optimizing weapon systems.
Yeah.
I like the money, but I don't like the actual work.
Yeah.
I liked people when they were happy with the solutions. But when I'm realizing you guys are actually using this in real time,
right?
I don't want to be a part of this war,
right?
In Afghanistan,
right?
And things like, I don't want to. This is not me. So I realized I was suppressing a lot. So I quit. I quit the job. I was like, you know what? I can't heal and still work when I'm pissed off about how this partnership is going.
And you're holding your tongue. You're actively every day holding your tongue.
I let it rip. I let it rip.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm out. I want my money. You know, so do what you got to do, you know.
That's good.
And I was like, and I don't care how it's going to fall out. Everything's going to be okay, because I didn't really have a plan of what I was going to do next, you know. So I was like, I'm just going to do what I have to do. And that felt freeing, because they never heard me like speak up and be like, I'm done. They're shocked. It was really one person. The other partners were good, but it was the one.
There's always one.
Yeah. And so I felt free. I was like, okay, now. And then I was like, you know what? I've been saying a yes to a lot of stuff I don't want to do. Yes to organizations I don't want to be in, because I didn't have the gumption to say no. And I felt guilt tripped. Well, you don't have kids. You're single. You've got time.
Oh, wow.
You know, all of that. I should give back. But I want to give back the way that I want to give
Absolutely.
back. So I start saying no to everything. I knew no was my new word, because I had never used it enough. It was like, go along to get along, you know? And so that was what changed about me, was like, no, I'm not going to be the pushover anymore. Nobody's having peace if I don't have peace.
So you legit had thyroid cancer and were like, I'm leaving my job.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Because I just didn't think I could heal in that environment. I was like, I'm not doing it. But what happened is I was as valuable as I thought. And they were like, don't quit, just take a leave of absence. And I was like, okay, I'm probably not coming back, but okay, that's more secure.
Right.
But
you keep your health insurance.
Right. Yeah. Right. So that's what I did. And so that was part of the journey of like unpeeling the people pleasing, and then unpeeling the fear, just a whole lot of stuff. So I really started delving into that, the energetic part of healing, because I would be so fearful going to that doctor to get the checkup. That's when I decided to fire him. I was like, you know what? He works for me. Why am I paying to almost come out in tears?
Exactly.
Let me get somebody else who's going to just do what I'm telling you to do, which is do the thing, tell me the results, and let me go on. I'm my doctor.
Exactly.
So I just started taking more control of that. And then that let me, I was like, how do I deal with the fear that keeps creeping up? That's when I learned more about meditation and taking control of that, and visualization, instead of, because worry is just negative visualization. Because people say, I don't know how to visualize. I'm like, yes, you do. We all have been doing it.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
Our whole life. Yes. When you worry, because you're thinking about what could happen negatively, and you're getting very upset about, I'm thinking, what if I don't heal? So now I'm envisioning not healing. And that's visualization.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Yeah. So I was like,
I never would have thought of that.
I was like, all right, let's flip this. So whenever I'm like feeling like
worry is negative visualization.
It is. Absolutely. And so now, even now, I use that when I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this? I was like, okay, how do you want it to go? Start thinking about that. Spend 5 minutes visualizing how you want this situation to flip, and just get into that emotion and feeling of it.
I live in that space.
Yes.
And people think I am out of my mind. They're like, how are you doing this?
No.
And I'm like, because this is what I want.
Your mantras that I hear all the time, you can have whatever you want, and those kind of things, those are real.
I live it.
Very much so.
I live it. But I don't think I've ever had the counter language of worry is visualization. Like I've never even considered that. But like that's for me, that's a very groundbreaking perspective, because oftentimes folks are like, but how do you have whatever you want? How are you thinking about that? And it's literally, it's the opposite of
it's flipping the script.
Yes. Wow, that was a good moment. Thank you for that. I needed
good,
that. Okay.
Good.
All right. So you got to a place where you're like, I'm not going to continue to allow all these things that are around me to continue to suppress me. I am going to get out of the negative visualization. So you started practicing positive visualization techniques. So meditation. I'm assuming there were some other modalities. I would
visualize my body healing. I'd visualize the tumor shrinking till you couldn't see it anymore, or just exiting my body. I started planning, like, what if you would be healed? I was like, I'd have a party. So I'm going to have a wellness party when this is done. That's what I would do, and so I just started thinking, what would life look like if what you want to happen happens?
Yes.
And let's plan for that. And so that's when the fear went away. And then just some other pieces, because I was focused initially on, how did I get this? So I'm like, was it radiation, these dental x-rays, all this stuff? So I was able to go to the center where they measure radiation in your body, because I worked at the labs and they have it for those folks.
Yeah.
And I did find that I had a higher level of certain elements that shouldn't have been there.
Oh.
And I felt like, okay, I got my answer now. And I can shift from trying to find the problem to fully focusing on the solution.
Yeah.
And so I was able to relax. And then finally I was like, I'm taking vacation. I've been studying, I was studying cancer recovery for 6 months every day, what to do. And so I was tweaking my plan. I was taking 100 different things. Finally decided to take a break, go to the beach at a friend's condo with my sister and another friend. And then I ended up the last week by myself. I'm sitting on the beach in bliss, because it's beautiful blue water.
Yeah.
I've got guacamole and chips and water. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is heaven. For me,
it's perfect.
It really doesn't get better than peace and just being here by myself and listening to the water. And then that's when I got a download of, this is what you need to be doing. You're taking too much. You can leave these things out. This is how you need to structure your healing routine.
So wait, so you got just a download that was like, I don't need all of the things that I'm taking.
Right.
So you were, oh my gosh. Okay, wait. So you were I'm researching.
Yes.
I've got all these things that you were implementing.
Changing stuff. I'm adding stuff. I'm taking crazy stuff. Yeah, I was like, whatever works.
Whatever it is,
Yeah,
I would
I'm
rather do
taking
that.
it.
Right.
Yes.
Oh,
Because I was meeting with all kinds of doctors. You know, I was like on a quest. I wasn't sitting at home chilling. Every day was like more information.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you had this moment that was like, okay, you're doing way too many things. Slow it down.
Yes. And that was like, it came to me. I was like, okay, we need to reduce inflammation in the body because the thyroid is enlarged. That's what we need to focus on. We don't need to take everything that reduces inflammation. We do need to take some things that specifically target cancer. We don't need to take all of them. Let's just a few. And then we need to have the nutrients, you know, that you need in your body. So it's like, we're giving ourselves the right food. Now we're giving ourselves the right supplements and we're reducing inflammation. That's it. We don't have to take every single thing. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I just like, when I got back to the room, just kind of marked off the things that were redundant in that area. And that's where people get so overwhelmed with cancer. I've heard of soursop. I've heard of this. I've heard of there. I was like, there are 100 different things, but you don't have to take them all
of them.
You don't.
And I can imagine that's way more anxiety inducing anyway, because you're like, I got all this stuff I have to take.
Schedule.
Literally.
There was so much. So now I'm like, okay, just a few things. I'm already taking the teas in the morning. I'm not doing pounds and pounds of juicing. I'm doing wheatgrass because it's so potent. I only need 2 ounces a day with some ginger to help settle the stomach. And then I just, you know, stripped down to some basic supplements. And I was like, okay, now I can do this. I can do this. And that's when the next time I actually got the new doctor, the thyroid had shrunk to the normal size. I was like, it's working. It's working. The tumor was still there though, but I was like, but my body is responding. It's responding. And I'm going to go back when I feel healed, not on a schedule. I'm in charge. I'm just going to do, instead of, you know, still.
Right. 3 months. Right.
I'm like, no, I'm going to go back when I feel healed. And that's it. Because what am I checking? I'm just going to go when I'm ready. So this was a year. So I'd given myself this year to do it, because I was like, by the time cancer shows up, it's been growing for years. It doesn't usually pop up like that. So the expectation for it to go is good, but I felt like it didn't go immediately because I needed to learn these other pieces of the process, these life lessons. Because if I had healed in 3 months, I probably would have jumped back into the people pleasing and this and
same
that.
Habits.
And I would not have evolved into the person I needed to be. You know, I was the type who like didn't want to be seen. I was always very quiet. People always think you're very soft-spoken. I'm really not. I'm like,
you are not
when
soft-spoken.
I'm with people that I'm comfortable with, I'm very loud.
Exactly.
You know?
You talk. You're chatty for sure.
We're a ruckus bunch of people. But that's not how I'm perceived, you know. So, and I would wear muted colors. I was very like, I'm gonna slip into the back of the room. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to make any waves. Now I'm like, no, I got pink, hot pink, red. That's my whole wardrobe now because I feel safe to be seen. And those are some of those things that you have to uncover, you know, childhood traumas and things like that really kind of shape how you move in the world. And I didn't realize it.
Wow.
You know, I was like, no, it's safe. You're safe.
Hey there. I hope you're enjoying the episode. And in fact, if you are, you can bring me to your organization or event to help you bring conversations like this to life in your workspaces. This is something I do for a living. I do coaching, I do training, I do executive consulting, whatever it is that you might need as it relates to trying to figure out how to activate allyship or equity in your space. It's probably something I can support. So if you're interested in how we can work together, you can reach out to me at cabralco.com or pop down into the show notes and click the link, book a discovery call, and we will chat with you soon. Back to the show. Just to recap, because before I have a couple specific questions about what happened, because I've heard pieces of this story, but I've never heard this told in this entirety quite this way. So I just want to cover a couple of things. You essentially started out fairly successful. You were successful. You were making good job. You were making good money. You had a good job.
Bonuses.
You were perceivably well liked, right? Like you were successful. And then you get this diagnosis and you're like, it was almost like it triggered you to realize that you were really not living your life. You were living a life.
I was
but it wasn't your life.
It wasn't. It was what I thought I needed to do.
Yes.
You know, I wanted a career, obviously, that made good money. That was always my thing. I want to be poor. I need to make a lot of money. So get the highest education so you can do that. So, but I realized I don't want to do this. This is not joyful. And I was like, what would you do if money wasn't a thing? And that's how I shifted.
You're ringing so many of my bells. So I'm a big fan of deprioritizing money as the focus. Like, I think people make so many poor decisions because the only focus is money. And what's hard about saying that is that we live in a society where so many people don't have it and need it. So it's literally all they can think about. But like, I always tell people, like, if you have access to making money, like, figure out what you actually want.
Right.
Because you'll get all the money.
Right.
And you will be miserable.
Right. Because I would go to work. I'm like, I can't wait to get out of here. It's 9:15.
Right. You still have a whole day. Like, exactly.
You know, I hated that structure. So yeah, so it was like, so the first transition out wasn't directly to holistic nutrition. I was like, I went to this headhunter. I was like, I need to get out of engineering. What do I do? You know? So he said, put in the keywords of what you want to be doing on a daily basis and see what pops up.
Oh, that's a good idea.
In a job search. And this job came up with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which was teaching people how to use food as prevention. I was like,
oh yeah.
But particularly plant-based food.
Right.
And I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is the job for me. Once I looked at it and saw, I was like, this has my name written all over it. I want this job.
Wait. Before you got to the new job, did you still have thyroid cancer at this point? Or did you not know? Were you still in that window where you were like, I'm not going back until I'm healed?
This was after I was healed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long from probably that pivotal moment when you were on vacation where you were like, okay, this is the right formula. Here's what I need to be doing to take care of myself. Here's how I want my life to feel, to healed. What was that
like
time
6
frame?
months, because I was about 6 months in. Yeah. Yeah. So I went back about a few months after. I feel like I'm healed. So we go, the tumor's still there. And then something came to me. I was like, let's do another biopsy, because we weren't doing biopsies. We were just doing ultrasounds.
Oh, so you just were seeing it, but there was no...
Right. And I was just expecting it to disappear. But I was like, having studied this for a year, sometimes the body just changes it to benign. Tumor will still be there. So I said, let's do another biopsy. And the doc said, okay. So we biopsy all the little nodules around it, everything, about 20 needle pricks. And a week later, come back. And I always say this is the saddest good news I've ever received, because he's going through each piece of paper with each result. And I'm like, there must be bad news at the end of this, because he's going, there's no cancer on this one. There's no cancer there. And he gets to the last one. It's like, so there's the one that had the cancer. It's no longer cancer. It is now benign. And I'm like,
what?
But he gave the news in such a muted.
Right. Why would you do that? Why would you open with the thing I want to know?
Right.
You know what? This is a thing, just as a side note, doctors, if you're listening, I have had the experience of getting a diagnosis that was shocking for me. It was something very curable, very minor. It was several years ago, but it was shocking. And what I didn't appreciate in the conversation was exactly that. I felt like she almost danced around like, well, this is what we saw and here's this thing. And you're literally like, can you just tell me the
you could have just said, instead of going through each of these nodules.
None of the nodules have cancer.
Right.
Hey, the results for this thing are, right? Like, Lee, can you give us, please?
Yeah.
We know you're nervous, baby. We nervous too.
Right.
Tell us the thing so we can do what we got to do.
Why are you not happy?
Right.
So, but anyway.
Because it's the way it was fed. Well, okay, but yeah, okay.
So he says, yeah, so I am changing your diagnosis. You're no longer a cancer patient, because you no longer have cancer. I was like, thank God. Right. Give me this paperwork and let me get the
hell out of here. Exactly. Okay, so
I had the wellness party 4 days later, because it was Wednesday.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I had it that weekend.
You threw a party in 4 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
you had already thought it out. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I just let people know, if you can make it, you can make it.
Right.
I had a house full of people. We celebrated.
That.
It was awesome. So then, I told everybody I was healed, because everybody was wondering what was happening. And so then people wanted to know, well, how did you do that? Can you talk to my person? Can you do this? And I was like, yeah. So, but then I was like, okay, so what am I going to do as a job now?
Right.
Because I don't want
I'm not doing that anymore.
I'm not going back to defense. I'm not helping optimize killing people. I'm just not.
Yeah.
So, that's when I started the job search. And that was what came up. And in the meantime, I had done things like help rehabilitate a whole center for people recovering from drugs and alcohol. Like we each had a room to renovate. I was like, this is what I want to do with my time as opposed to what people are telling me to do. And for a short time, I became the executive director of that center.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so, but I was like, okay, what next? And that's when I did the job search. And then that's when I found PCRM, and I was like, yeah, I do this job for free. I had already packed up my house, although I'm not going to do it for free.
Right.
But so I had already packed up my house and still hadn't got yes that you're going.
Oh, wow.
And it was like Tuesday and the movies were coming on Friday. And then that's when I got the call that I got the job. And I was like, I'm out of here.
That's amazing.
Great. And it was like, thing is, when I get locked in on something, I was like, I couldn't physically search for another job because I would feel bad every time. I was like, this is the job. And I had the interview, and I always have this thing. If I get the interview, I get the job.
I'm very similar.
I'm like, if I get the interview,
if I get the interview, I'm going to land it. Right. I
every
feel the
time.
Same way.
Yes. The only time I didn't is when it was a job I didn't want. Once
exactly.
I got there,
exactly.
And I didn't get the job. It was a terrible interview.
Right.
And I didn't want it anyway.
Like, I'm good.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So that's why I had the gumption to just pack up. We're moving, make the plans, and then from there.
So the pillars, when you describe the pillars now, I just want to make sure that they're not lost for the audience. What are the pillars of, let's just call it healing, because people may not necessarily have cancer, but maybe they're just looking for like general
because
well-being.
I work with people with several other illnesses. So it's number one, we do get a foundation of food. So whether that's going to be fully plant-based or extremely clean, we have to look at the food. We can't be taking in junk.
Right.
So that's number one. And I usually recommend plant-based diets. So, well, I always do, but some people want to do hybrids. You can do what you want to do. I'm just going to tell you what I think.
Right.
So there's the diet, there's the supplementation, because usually most disease comes from a lack of certain nutrients over time and things like that. So let's make sure we're feeding our body with the supplements that will fill any gaps and help support whatever it is we're trying to heal. And then the third one is what I call the emotional, mental, or energetic piece of it. And that is really almost the strongest piece of it.
Yeah.
Because when you read stories like from Joe Dispenza and other people about how just thinking you have a disease or thinking you have a cure and you're curing and you're really just taking a placebo. I mean, the placebo effect is a testament to how strong our mind is. It's there. So this is not new. It's learning how to harness that in a way that is getting you the results you want. And then for a lot of people, I just help them uncover. And that's one of my skills, is to clearly just, after meeting with someone, seeing where the energetic blocks are. And like, this is what you need to deal with. I've had people who were, having like incontinence issues, right? Which they shouldn't. And they had a parent that had moved in with them. And that's when it started. I was like, you don't see that.
Yeah. You don't notice this is the.
You now feel like a child again. And I was like, you got to
You're doing a thing a child would be doing.
And when they stood up to that person, it stopped. Wow. And I was like, and they had been given all these medications. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not a medical issue. This is a feeling issue. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I feel like is one of my just like God-given gifts, because I don't have to work at that. I just see it. And usually after one consult, I can pinpoint, if the person is open, where we need to focus, and then how we need to navigate through that while doing the other things. Because if you can take all the supplements in the world and eat the cleanest diet, and if you're still holding on to resentment, anger, and just putrid emotions, it's not going to work. Yeah. And that's why we say people on a vegan diet have less probability of a lot of things, but it's not a panacea. It's not a sure thing. It just reduces your probability, but it doesn't reduce it all.
So what I really love about this conversation is, because I always tell people, like, she's not one of those vegans, that's like, oh, you eat meat, like, it's not that.
Because like, what's the point of that?
It's not helpful.
Judgment is never helped
it
anything.
Exactly. It's not helpful. But like, I think what I also hear in this conversation that I think is really great is just like, really like what being vegan really does is it gives you a better starting point.
Absolutely.
But like, if your brain is still crap, or you're still not making sure that you're getting the nutrients, just being vegan alone is really just like, okay, well, you're probably starting at a better place. Like in the grand scheme of things,
you're reducing your probability of a lot of diseases.
Exactly. Yeah. But like you're still at risk if you are taking in this other form of like abuse, which I think is like a good perspective. Like the pronged approach really matters. And I also like the idea that, your mind has so much to do with it. Like how you think, what you put in, the way you make decisions, the stuff you decide to hold
Right.
on
Because
to.
if you don't deal with the emotional piece, you're not going to follow the plan that I'm giving
Exactly.
you because you don't even believe it yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I love that because I just am a fan of like, I get a choice. I get a choice.
Right.
And I'm going to, at every opportunity, I'm taking my choice. Like, period. Like, this is not up for debate. And so often I think that, you know, we are put in the position very much like what you described being young, where it's like, okay, I've got to take this out. I don't want to make people mad. You know, I know I'm the only woman and I don't want them to think that I'm emotional or whatever it is. And we fall into that loop and you're just like, I can't. That's not me. I get to have what I want. I'm going to do what I want to do. I really value you having that element of like, no, these are the 3 things that you have to think about. And all of them need to really be in order, especially if you're working on addressing a specific concern.
Right. Because it only gets you so far when you do part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Amazing. So I have to ask you a few other like specific food questions, but I want to talk about one other thing first. You've been in a couple of, you know, we're in the documentary phase now, right? So I feel like every few years there's another one that's like, hey, just so you know, you can eat healthy and life gets better. I appreciate these, you know, I think they're a good tap and nudge to, you know, remind you to eat well, but I would love to just, you know, just kind of get your thoughts and insight around like the idea that like you can watch this and you can be, for lack of a better description, scared into going vegan. What else do people probably need to think about?
And the thing is, so many people have gone vegan for watching movies like What the Health and the new one that's out now, You Are What You Eat. But a lot of people fall off because they didn't get the full message of it, or they just don't do it quite right. They're like, I'm just eating peanut butter and smoothies. I'm like, you know, there's such a variety of things.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking, because I feel like this idea of going vegan just means like, okay, I eat celery and guacamole and like all this, but you're not. No. I'm like, how are you getting what you need? Because I do think sometimes these movies do a good job of showing like you can still be strong and eat just plants and like all that, but like I don't know that you also get the other side, which is like, but what is it? Is that?
And that's what I help with the coach. I do the menu plans, and that's how I got into cooking, because one of my pet peeves is nasty vegan food.
Listen,
it's like,
it is the reason I'm not vegan, because
I know that it turns so many people off.
Yes.
And I'm like, this can taste good if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's really, it's not that hard if you have a skill set to begin with, like cooking and just education. So it was, for me, definitely a stair-step education, because when people were like making cheeses and mayonnaise, I was like, I'm not making condiments. I barely want to cook. Now you want me to
make my own condiments. And also, like, I don't even use mayonnaise that much. So like, give me something. And then if you're gonna give me some cheese, can it be like good, at least a little like cheese?
Yes.
Like, I don't want it to taste like cashews, please. Can I get it tasting like cheese?
Right.
Yeah.
In 2007-8, when I was going through this, there weren't that many things on the market. So you really did have to make your own stuff. But the more I got into it, I was like, oh, because I loved a good grilled cheese. When I figured out how to make cashew cheese so I could make my own grilled cheese, I could like breathe a sigh of relief, because I was like, that was the one thing I was like, I really hate giving that up. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so then from there, I was like, oh, this isn't that hard. I can just learn a little more. So I just added little by little on learning how to make it really taste good. Some trial and error, recipes, recipe books, those kind of things. So, and then I'm like, okay, this is doable.
Yeah.
This is very doable. And it does not have to be a chore. You know, I'm a Southern girl. I like hearty, you know, things.
Yeah.
So I love a good salad, of course, but you know, there's more to life than
salad. Exactly.
And when I have a salad, it's not iceberg lettuce and tomato.
Exactly.
It's got sun-dried tomatoes. It's got, you know, it's got beans. It's got a ton of really good nutrients. So teaching people how to make it accessible and taste good is one of my passions.
Yeah.
Because I know that it can be. And every time people have my food, they're like, well, if I could eat like this every day,
I have personally said it. So now we have to talk about that for just a moment too.
Right.
So you also, you're based in DC and you have a vegan food service.
Right.
And I'm going to tell y'all the food is good and I am not vegan. I have no plans on becoming vegan. But if I were going to be vegan, I would probably need to move back to DC. So tell us about Ruby
Yes.
Red's Vegan, because it's everything
Right.
I've eaten has been amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, Ruby Red's vegan meal delivery service. So we service DC, Baltimore, and all the surrounding within 40 miles
Okay.
of it. And so it is recipes, and how again it came about was, people, I did videos on how to make food, so you can watch those on
Right.
YouTube. And they were like, well, can you just make the food?
I can see that.
So, and then some people who were really sick were like, can you just do it? And I was like, okay, I'll do it for a couple of people. And so then I started doing that. And then I said, okay, I do want to do a service. And then during the pandemic, that's when we decided to launch it. Because so many people eating at home and needing good food to nourish them through this.
So let me tell you the ways I am kicking myself, because I was in DC during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And for family reasons, we just hadn't really got in touch like that.
Right.
And so if I had known,
Yeah.
you brought me a quiche. I still tell people about this quiche. I don't know what the quiche was made of. I obviously was vegan because you made it and you brought it to me, but like, it was so delicious. It was like, I think even quiche that is made with real eggs has not been this flavorful. Sometimes you end up with like this it's very heavy on the egg, but you're not getting like the robust flavors that run through it. This was delicious. The crust was good. The texture was right.
And it was gluten-free.
And it was gluten-free,
which is a challenge.
crust. Okay. So you brought me this, you dropped it off at the hotel. Like, I'm doing food delivery. I'll bring you something. You brought me, it was so good. And I was just like, I cannot believe I don't live in DC anymore, because I would absolutely, even in the ways that I'm always like, I'm never going vegan. I mean, you never know. I might, but like, to your point, one of the reasons why is because like, I felt like I had to go gluten-free at one point. I realized that gluten was causing a ton of issues. And so now I eat it very, very rarely. But, when I went completely gluten-free, it was so hard. It was so painful. So many things were disgusting.
They are.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so difficult to like even monitor like food labels and like how to identify it, that like the idea of trying to go through that again, I'm almost like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm completely, just give me the thing as it is. Right. Yeah. And I obviously try to eat responsibly. Like I don't want to overeat in any specific category. But what I really valued was exactly what you just said, is that it was delicious, and you're thoughtful about it being delicious. It's not just about putting something in that's going to serve the purpose of checking a box for
Absolutely
eating.
Not. It is truly a passion. And when I make food, I make food. I don't even cook when I'm not feeling happy or good, because I'm like, the energy goes into the food. It's just not going to taste the same. So I'm like, if I need to take a nap, whatever, because I like to have my full energy, because it's a creative process. Yeah. So I even have hard times like doing recipes, because I was like, I don't really do it like this, but this is as close as I could get to the recipe.
You do it by feeling. Yes, the ancestors come through.
Exactly.
And
that's my from my aunt and my mom. That's how we cook. We little of this, little of that. Because my aunt Ruby, who I'm named after, would give me the recipe for her sweet potato pie. She was like, put enough, in till it's enough.
And you're like, okay. Okay, thank you. Just put enough in, so it's about right.
Just keep going till it's. I was like, but I know what you mean, though.
Right.
I get it. Right. And it did come out really well. So that is what, that's my passion, and hoping soon to be able to ship further, to ship outside of the DC area. So that's on my list of accomplishments. I must
put me on the list. Yes. I'll be there. I will be a recipient. You sent us a pie. Yes. We ate it straight out the the pan. We didn't even cut it. We just were like, oh, this is good. So absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask for some like just kind of tangible tactics. You've given me some, but just for people who are like, I don't know if I really want to go vegan, but I watched this movie and now I'm like, ooh, maybe I need to think about it. If you were to make, some just 3 recommendations, like 3 things that it's like cut or reduce, like what would those things be?
So the dairy has to go, because it's for baby cows. Yeah. And it can be very inflammatory and it causes a lot of issues, and it has a lot of hormones, and we're dealing with things like cancer. We reduce hormones. Like when people have breast cancer or other things, the first thing they do is put you on some type of medication that suppresses the hormones, the estrogen, right? Okay. So I'm like, but if you're drinking milk or eating
you're getting
dairy,
it anyway.
Let's just do it naturally. Okay. So dairy, and there's so many alternatives for dairy. I feel like it's easier almost to go dairy free than vegan.
It absolutely is. I mean, when I think about dairy consumption, honestly, my biggest issue is cheese, and
Cheese.
I have to watch it because I
Yeah.
love cheese. But
Yeah, and that's usually the thing.
yeah, I can get away from milk. I mean, like almost everything else. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't really use creamer. Like you know,
and
so
they have coconut creamer now.
yeah,
And so
there are
many
options.
others.
Mhm.
There's so many options. So if you can like start merging into the cheeses, the vegan cheeses or no cheese, that would be better.
Yeah.
Different food additives. I'm like, so if you can stay away from the additives like hydrogenated oil, any artificial food colorings, high fructose corn syrup, those three, basically you're going to eat at a higher level because those are put on very cheap foods. They're going to last on the shelf forever.
Okay.
And so all your packaged, you know, cakes and pies and
typical
crackers,
American gas station diet. Yeah.
You're going to find that. So if it's in there, it's not really food.
Right.
It does a lot of, we don't have time to go into what that does, but it's not good. Stay away from that. And then focus on what you can eat. Focus on how many vegetables you've eaten today. Like making broccoli the main thing. How am I going to do this broccoli?
Right.
We can jerk broccoli. We can do this to it. We can do that. So many things. We can roast it. They're making those things the main thing.
It's so bad because you said broccoli and the very first thing I thought about was cheese. But I don't even eat cheesy broccoli like that. Right. But when I'm thinking like do something to broccoli, my first thought was, ooh, cheese. And then I was like, oh, no, not that. Then my second thought was butter. And I was like, oh, wait, not that either.
That's what most people rely on.
And so, yeah, we do. But like jerk broccoli, I was like, low-key, that sounds kind of good.
And there's so many ways. So I would say find some good, follow me online. I have great recipes.
Wait. Tell us. Where can people follow you online?
RubyLathon.com. So it's my name, RUBY. It's probably on the screen here, LATHON. So follow me there. I'm always giving tips. I do classes. You can order the food, and then I have a cookbook coming. So, but it's already out there. You want to follow trusted people that, make food that you think you would like,
right?
And try that. Look at the reviews, because not everybody's created equal when they come to their tastes and everything. So you find somebody who has the taste that you like,
right?
Because there's some very extravagant vegan books that are like, wow, when I want to get fancy, I use that.
Yeah.
But most of us aren't trying to spend 2 or 3 hours making a dish.
That was my next question, honestly, was like timing. Like, what can someone expect? Like, I think when you commit to something new that is, like a whole life change, like eating, you have to commit the time. I had to commit the time to gluten-free. It took me a long time to like really feel like I could even just casually go to a restaurant and be like, oh, I'll be fine. Right. What kind of time should someone expect, like just starting out, to decide, hey, I've seen this movie, I'm watching this podcast, I want to make this change? How much time should I really kind of give myself to make that shift?
Yeah. In the beginning, it's going to take longer because you need to read labels. And then once you find out the labels that are good, you don't have to do that anymore. So I can just go in the store and be in and out. But I like to do a little more batch cooking on the weekend so that I have a base. Like if I make a lasagna or if I make a 3-bean chili or something that I'm just going to add salads to or side vegetables to.
Yeah.
Then during the week, it's not as long. And I know most of us are on the 9 to 5 kind of thing.
Right.
So taking 2 to 3 hours on the weekend to make something that you're going to add things to can make it work a lot easier.
Yeah.
And plan for it.
Okay. That's super helpful. I do have a question about folks who, I think would probably say eating healthy is expensive.
Sometimes.
What recommendations do you have? Because I think people immediately, especially this day and age, will say, okay, I'm gonna go to Whole Foods, which because it's Whole Foods in there,
right?
The
good stuff.
Exactly. And so I think people see that Whole Foods will eat your whole paycheck, and so we get a little nervous about making a food choice, even though it's absolutely worth investing in that way. What are some recommendations you might have for people who are worried about the expense?
Yeah. Well, first, it depends on what kind of vegan you're trying to become. So if you're doing all the faux meats, they are more expensive. And so that's going to run up the bill a bit. But secondly, buying some things, organic things like that at Whole Foods are often cheaper than the regular grocery store.
Okay.
So I don't shop for vegan food at the regular grocery store because I see the markup by $2 or $3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas at Whole Foods, this is what they do. So it tends to be cheaper for certain things.
Okay.
So I like to shop. And it takes a little more prep, but shop the perimeters. I stay most of the time in the unpackaged food, the produce section. You can buy things in bulk, the rices, the oats that are not expensive.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to do some prep with it though.
Right.
But if you have the recipes, have a plan. I have like a 28-day plan that maps it out for people with shopping lists.
I need you to send me. Just send me. I'm not making no promises, cousin. But right. I would like to have access to some of this. This sounds like achievable.
That's on my website. You can just download it. So it helps you. Here's what to eat for the next 28 days. Here's a weekly shopping list so that you're getting everything you need. Here's some frequently asked questions like, am I going to get enough protein? Yes, you are.
And this is on your website for free?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Yes. A lot of it. I have a blog that has a lot of
stuff in it.
The 28-day program is not free, but I have other things.
Free or accessible is fine. Okay.
Yeah. There's tons of free stuff on the website.
I mean, listen, I see a lot of stuff that you give away.
My videos are all free and blogs. So so that it's all right there. That you can get. So it's like you want a plan going into it. Don't just wing it.
Yeah.
Don't wing it because you're going to be buying packages of tofu that you have nothing to do with and then you're going to try to treat it like chicken and just roast it and it tastes terrible.
Exactly.
And then that's why people say, I don't like tofu. I'm like, yeah, but you haven't had it when I
You haven't had it done
You haven't done right.
That
like in my lasagna, instead of ricotta, I use tofu, but nobody notices
because it gives you the texture.
Because I season it with basil and all kinds of seasonings and so it actually tastes good in itself, but in the lasagna, it just gives you the texture of, this is like ricotta.
It gives you the texture. Exactly.
So that's the importance of having like a plan.
You have to tell me next time you make lasagna.
Yes.
That sounds amazing.
People love that lasagna. And then you get the protein in.
Right.
And there's protein in all fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
So you just have to eat more like of the beans, nuts, and seeds that have the higher amount of protein.
Yeah.
To do it so that you feel satiated. That's important.
Okay. I love all of these. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to ask you the magic question I always ask at the end. There are a lot of ingredients that are banned in Europe, but are not banned in the US. And this comes up often in a lot of those documentaries.
So much.
Yeah, it comes up in a lot of those documentaries and you're like, right? Yeah. I just wanted to get your thoughts, your take on that. Like, what's your impression? Like, and then also like, is there something we can do to like maybe encourage like the food industry to be more thoughtful?
Absolutely. I mean, they've already responded. The food companies have already responded to the demand for vegan food.
Yeah.
Because after, What the Health and many others, the demand went way up.
Yep.
And I still get emails about that all the time.
Yeah.
So number one, write to these food manufacturers and complain. They do actually listen. My mom wrote to one of these folks that makes greens and they put too many stems in it. Do you know they changed? From
I love that. I love that she wrote.
Yeah, she's like, what is it? We getting stems? We need the leaves,
I love that.
So yes, write to them, complain, tell them what you want because they respond to dollars. So the other thing is stop buying the junk because when that market share goes down, then they're going to start shifting to what is selling.
Yeah. So
speak up and then speak up with your dollars.
Yeah.
And not buying it. So I'm just not going to buy things that have the artificial food colorings, the hydrogenated. I just don't. It's not food because you're just poisoning yourself.
Yeah, starve it out. So if you starve out the profits, they'll stop.
And then we know that it's money. It's all about the money.
Yeah,
and that's what those movies highlight is that they are sacrificing our health on purpose to make $1, then to feed you into the sick care system to make more money, and particularly targeting Black communities to do that. And that pisses me off.
It pisses me off.
And so I just have to be like, I'm not going to be a part of that game.
Right.
Not only am I not going to be a part, but I'm going to educate other people about it.
Right. I love that. Yeah. This was so great. I have one more question I want to ask you. So every episode, I always ask the guest this question. The show's called Guilty Privilege. I call it Guilty Privilege because I think people feel really guilty about the privileges that they have. I think that they hold on, they, hide them. They are defensive. I think there's all of this feeling that occurs. And I really want people to instead see privileges as something that they can embrace and use to be impactful. Right. So my question for you is, what is one privilege that you have that you refuse to feel guilty about?
I think it's been a good education. Having the benefit of learning how to learn gives me so much confidence into part of the confidence of doing what I did. Because I'm like, I can learn anything. And being an engineer, they kind of teach you how to break down the logic and, all of that. So it just gave me the confidence to do what I do. And I feel like I can learn anything and adapt as needed.
Yeah.
And that is a privilege of having that confidence that you can pretty much tackle anything if I give enough time or figure out how to get help to do it, you know?
You have like a good framework of like how to think.
Right.
I always say that grad school taught me how to think.
Exactly.
Where I feel like undergrad was kind of like, you have to do this just to prove that you'll stick with the task. You know what I mean? Like, but like when I went to grad school, I felt like I walked away with like, okay, this is how to think about this critically.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Fantastic answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this.
Yeah,
This
thanks
has been
for having
great.
me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I want to make sure you know too, if y'all have any questions or want to reach out, all of the details to get in touch with Ruby will be in the show notes.
Great.
I'm Amber Cabral, and this is Guilty Privilege.